It's podcadzo.
I start by putting the headphones on.
I was ready to go, so my headphones are already on.
And then I wiggle the mouse.
I'm prepared. I've been waiting for you.
And then
My vape just died right when we started.
today I'm drinking Guinness.
Oh, wow. What a refreshing change. Besides drinking Guinness, what else is new?
Not a whole lot that I'm willing to divulge on the podcast.
You don't want to tell anyone about the dungeon yet? The sex dungeon that you're
I can give a dungeon update.
hustle. Oh, let's hear it.
That might require more. Let's save it for next episode.
Okay, sure.
Because it's going to require background.
Yeah. And foreground.
And foreground. And
all the grounds are going to be required for that.
Anything new with you, Julian?
This button popped off my shirt.
Just now?
No, not just now. Like a few months ago.
A few months
I
ago?
kind of forgot about it until I put the shirt on today. So kind of just hoping my gut doesn't pop out during the sode.
I like the
I don't want
shirt.
the people to, thank you. Yeah, I love this shirt, but it's missing a button. I don't know how to sew. I mean, I could figure out how to sew a single button back on a fucking shirt, but I kind of forgot about it till it.
Did it come with the extra buttons? Like
no,
shirts
I bought this from
sometimes?
Goodwill.
Okay.
Yeah, this was like a $4 Goodwill shirt, and I've had it for like almost a decade.
Do you have a method for saving buttons that come with shirts?
I do try to save buttons if they pop off, but I always wind up losing them because I don't have a place to put them where it's like a good place to store a fucking button.
I got a weird little box. This weird little wooden box for storing items. My mother gave it to me. It's pretty cool.
That's
very
cool.
artsy. It's not very functional though. Not practical.
I had like
so about the only thing you could store in there is buttons.
buttons.
That's the only thing that fits.
That's like exactly what I need.
Yeah. So
My realtor gave me a wooden box that he built.
Are
when
they
I bought the
from
house.
Hayden Outdoors Real Estate?
No, actually. This jacket I got for doing some catering for my work.
I like the jacket too.
Instead of getting a cash tip, he gave us all jackets. Dude, I love this jacket. I wear it all the time. It's so comfortable. But anyway, I digress. Whew.
Dude,
Take a deep breath.
Take it easy.
Take a deep breath. Everything's going to be okay.
I don't know why you got so heated there.
Because I digressed, bro. And it's been long enough
don't like digressing?
that I forgot what I digressed from. And it doesn't
too,
matter
honestly.
either. Yeah. Anyway.
Welcome to
there's no
podcadzo.
news really. I think you're opening a dungeon up. I'm shutting a dungeon down. That seems like
It's
economically
the
the world
of life.
sorting itself out. That's a nice thing. The sweatshop's going good.
All of our
the
nefarious little
immigrant
side
vans
hustles.
that I'm running into the country are going good. Donald Trump was right about that, by the way. I'm the one bringing all those caravans in.
And Joe Biden lets you.
Yeah, Joe Biden's
right
letting me
about
do
that,
it
too.
because he's a little sleepy. All right.
All right. And
Enough
that
of
wraps
that.
up the political segment of the show. Welcome to podcadzo, everybody.
Who let us have these things, bro?
We
There
worked
should be,
really
like-
hard to buy them. and-
There's background checks required for like guns and stuff. I feel like there's
Yeah, for
background
basic
checks for like
podcasting shit.
microphones and like
Yeah.
audio interfaces and stuff. We got to cut a lot of
that
shit
could-
out. Yeah.
Before you buy an SM7B, you have to pass a background
You have to
check.
make sure that you're not like a clinical narcissist
Yeah.
and that you also aren't going to like talk about I don't know, sports. What are overdone podcasts? Like sports. Last week I said there were cooking podcasts. I realize now that I was just thinking of cooking YouTube shows. So
I didn't
please
think to look into
don't
that.
hound me in the
But
comments.
I was like, I've never seen any of these cooking podcasts. True crime, overdone. Like a comedy podcast. Yes. Where
just like celebrities shooting the shit. I feel like that's kind of overdone, like with no real end goal. Even though some of my favorite podcasts are those podcasts, like not everybody needs to have one.
do you ever listen to Tim Dillon?
Yeah, I don't listen to the Tim Dillon show or whatever, but I listen to some of his just like stand up and shit.
Yeah.
He's okay.
I
kind of a
don't
dick.
quite get the hype around him, but I saw a clip a while ago, like it was a YouTube thing, where he said, once celebrities get into podcasting, that will be the death of podcasting. And I don't know if he's right or not, but it is just funny that,
I mean, it's a double-edged sword because
celebrity has a
podcasts
podcast
were
now.
made so popular by celebrities and because of like celebrity. But yeah, they're also the ones driving it into the fucking ground because everyone just realized you can make like a quick buck off of podcasting and it doesn't require that much work and you can make someone else do all the editing and mixing. Not us, though. We don't make any money off of this show. We are doing this purely because it's fun and we like doing it. And we're a little bit narcissistic because you kind of have to be.
Yeah. We do think it's worth putting effort into this so people can hear our opinions.
If
At the
we
end of the day.
feel a little bit cringy about it, if we feel cringy about the fact that we're doing it, does that make us narcissists still? Does that cancel out the narcissism? Because I feel like a narcissist would be like, I feel good about this. But me, I'm like, this is kind of weird. I always feel like I kind of have to justify myself when I tell people I have a podcast. I'm like, so before you judge me too much, it's not like what you think it is.
No, I do that too. And I'm like, I'm not trying to be a podcaster. It's for fun.
It's a side hustle to a side hustle.
Yeah. It's for the band.
Yes, we talk about Cadzo exclusively on this podcast.
Yeah.
Nothing else.
Exactly.
I did have a question for you, by the way. Because we've been on and off of the rap thing so much lately. One of my favorite rappers just put out a new album.
Schoolboy Q?
Yes.
Yeah.
Have you listened to it? What are your thoughts?
I listened to the first probably like 5 tracks, actually. I haven't gone through the whole thing.
Oh, man. Okay.
It's super dope.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Yeah.
I want to know what you think about the second half of the record too, because I feel like it gets so crazy.
Okay.
Like you'd think, I don't know, with how many tracks it has on it, and it's like 56 minutes long, you'd think at some point the tracks would like kind of chill out. There'd be a little bit of like breathing room.
Yeah.
There really isn't. The whole album just goes fucking hard, and it gets really like experimental in the back half. So
hell yeah, I'll check it out. I put it on at the gym the other day, and
it's good gym music.
It is, and I was enjoying it, but I was like, I really want to listen to this. I'm not taking it in enough right now in this gym environment. So I've been blasting Death Grips exclusively at the gym. Yeah. Yeah.
How many like dumbbells have you thrown?
A lot.
How many like how often do you start
Records
just like
amount.
smashing your head into the mirror?
Yeah. I just make this noise. No, whenever I have like a heavy set coming up, I've seen footage is jump to that one.
Sure.
And it hypes me up. So
The Money Store
much.
dude?
Money Store, yeah. That's a great album.
That would be a good gym album if I worked out.
We are not here to talk about hip hop though.
But we will be talking about Schoolboy Q
Yeah, let me listen to the full album. We'll
later.
There's an album
Don't
I
rush
wanted
us.
to mention.
Stop rushing us. God, you're so rude when you do that.
Yeah, audience.
Fuck you guys.
Feel you judging us through your computer
You
screens.
dirty little fucks. You're not any better than us.
No.
I bet that you were
We've
probably...
made it quite clear that we're better than you. Actually. You don't
That's
have a
why you're
podcast,
watching
I
this
bet.
podcast.
I wanted to bring up the... No, you're good. I was just trying to think of what album I was trying to talk about. I did want to bring up the Liam Gallagher album. Did you see anything about that?
No, like recently?
Yeah, he
Not
put out
since
a
it
new
came
out
out.
with John Squire.
Yeah, I mean, I saw that.
Album. It's kind of his and John Squire's No Line on the Horizon, to skip ahead a little bit. It's very divisive amongst the hardcore fans. A lot of polarizing views.
Interesting.
There, on the day it came out, so he's released a few singles. The singles kind of had mixed reception. People were really critical of his lyrics and his lyric writing, and I can get behind some of that, especially on Rainbow, or is that the full name of whatever the Rainbow song is. There's some pretty whack lyrics, but when he dropped the full album last Friday, all I was seeing was just like an overwhelming amount of hate. People being like, I can't believe these two legends have produced such garbage. The lyrics are horrible. Songs are not that great. The guitar playing is kind of phoned in. Just Another Rainbow. That's the song.
I did. I listened to this because wasn't this the single?
That was the first single.
Yeah,
and
I
then
listened
they
to this.
did Mars to Liverpool as the second
Yeah, I
single.
thought this song was shite, to be honest. A lot of people were like, it's so good, it's so good.
I think it was a very poor
fucking
choice
boring.
for the
It's such a lead single. It's just like, why do bands... I don't know. In this track list, and I haven't listened to the whole album, obviously, but it seems like it's right in the middle of the album. They threw it on there because they needed something to put out as a lead single.
Yeah.
Is it on the album for any other reason besides that?
Yeah, it's a weird one. I just... there are like a handful of songs on the album that would have been much better lead singles. Just Another Rainbow, I think it does have a great guitar part. The whack lyrics I was talking about is he just recites the colors of the rainbow, the Roy G. Biv, there in the bridge, in a very cringe way.
Red and orange, yellow and green, blue, indigo, violet. We've crossed a line. What?
It's I remember listening to the single when it first came out and getting to that part. I was like, "What? Did I hear that right? Did he really just sing?"
The single art for this too was pretty goddamn cheesy.
People are shit. Have you seen that album art?
No, I don't think so.
Look up the album art. That's other than lyrics. That's been the biggest point of criticism.
Okay.
Yeah, there it is.
Oh, interesting.
I think it's cool. I think it's something that's gonna age well. I think it's weird and tacky enough that it's gonna be like.
I didn't really like it as single art, but I kind of like it as album art. I don't know.
And I think it's a cool concept to make a fake product for every song on the album.
Yeah, that's what's cool about it to me too. Is that it's like, kind of like, Local Natives does this thing now on their last 2 albums where they have like random, just like Local Natives brand things all over their like covers and the back covers, and they have like some like I feel like, I don't know, on Violet Street it's the most evident. Oh, god damn it, why are my Google searches always too redacted?
That's funny that
it literally came up with street art that was pictures of fucking
Street.
violets. Yeah. Stupid fucking bullshit. Yeah, like these, like they just have little like LP4 or like.
I like shit like that, yeah.
Yeah, like little branded things just kind of all over the record. And like, yeah, they put like the art design on the front of it. Like they put like who wrote it on the front of it. It's kind of cool, like credits on the front. Or just like
making
simple
it look like old
branding
album
marks.
Covers, yeah.
Yeah.
Like old RCA shit.
Yeah, exactly. But when Liam Gallagher does it, I think it's fucking cheesy and stupid and overdone. And also, I honestly haven't heard a single thing about this record since it came out, so it can't be that good.
Yeah, you should just go to his Instagram page and read the comments under some of the posts, and you'll get a pretty good idea of what people think about it.
That sounds incredibly entertaining.
Let's do it right now. Were you a John? Do you know John Squire at all? Okay,
yeah.
Stone Roses and all that. Mm-hmm. He's someone I should have mentioned in the guitarist episode, a couple episodes
back. Where do I go?
Liam Gallagher.
Liam Gallagher's page? Okay. I was like, if people are clowning on fucking John Squire, I actually feel kind of bad.
Yeah.
Come on, guys. You were great once. Oh, and then immediately, fire emoji, amazing work. Yeah. I'm 46, Lifelong Roses, Oasis, etc. fan. This album is just what I needed.
Okay, good.
Fucking anthems, fucking awesome. Hope they do anywhere. Roll on Newcastle City Hall. What? Is that a song? It's sub-average at best. Yowza, that's a terrible cover. It's brilliant. Absolutely superb album.
Okay, so a lot of the positive stuff has made its way up.
You gotta have a cleaning bag for all you Mary Poppins. The guitar is great. That's it.
British people are incomprehensible most of the time.
Album is a grower. Not impressed at first. I keep playing it. It's great fun. The blues of I'm a Wheel, John's Warm, and great lively guitar tone. The Pistols kind of mood of I'm Bored. All great fun. Okay.
So I was going to say I'm a Wheel should have been the lead single. That's a great song, and it feels kind of timeless. Has a classic Go on some of the other ones though. See.
Second best album of 2024 so far.
Okay.
What's the first
Wow.
one?
The positive comments have really.
One of the worst album covers I've ever seen. Looks like a 7-year-old using Photoshop for a school project. It does kind of have a little bit of a Photoshop vibe to it in a bad way. Like it looks too.
It doesn't
2D.
look very finished. Yeah.
Yeah. But they probably did that on purpose, or at least that's what they're gonna say, because we're the cunts, not him.
Yeah. Well, you're scrolling for more bad comments. It's admirable how Liam Gallagher has handled it. Like, they released the album art early on and people were shitting all over it immediately. And he's just doubled down, being like, this is amazing art.
Bro, this is the exact same comment I just read on a completely different post that came.
There's some bots at play.
6 hours ago.
Some bots, huh?
And this post was like 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, weird. But yeah, see that one, he posted it in or photoshopped it by the Mona Lisa or in a museum.
Shart. The caption is art, and the first comment is shart. A rushed album using the two artists as a selling point. Ah, well. Shite.
AI Alan Partridge.
This album slaps, as the kids say.
Nice, that guy's really funny.
Mega.
Hang it
in Le Louvre. Louvre spelled with 2 O's.
And the guy has a cowboy hat on his profile picture.
Joshua Heather.
Dude, don't dox him.
We're doxing him. You can bleep his name. It doesn't matter. I just want to see what the fuck happens. Oh. Gay? All right. Should we talk about what we're actually here to talk about?
Yes. And
should we tell the people what we're here to talk about?
Let's just get right into it. Let them figure it out.
Let's not talk about it at all. Let's talk about it, but not preface it. There we go.
Yep.
I'll give you a hint.
It feels wrong.
Bono.
I thought you meant not like it was going to be obvious we were talking about U2, but not get into what specifically we were talking about in the realm of U2.
I just meant should we tell them anything?
Yeah. It feels wrong not to.
Yeah.
So we've done a U2 episode, obviously.
Yeah, but it was a very surface level U2 episode. Yeah. It was designed to basically just let you guys know that we like U2.
That's all it was. We have a lot of those episodes actually. But this is good. We're doing covering the groundwork.
Yeah, we're doing their promo for them because they don't do that shit.
Yeah. Exactly. So at some point we're going to go in and talk about the early U2 albums. So we're coming at this from a backwards angle. We are starting off by talking about late period U2 albums. The way you kind of position this was albums that aren't good or you don't like, and that we should talk about it.
So this is an interesting era of U2, in my opinion, for a couple of reasons. The first reason is because I think a lot of their best work comes out of this era, but a lot of people completely overlook this era, especially U2 fans. And the second reason it's interesting to me specifically is because some of their worst shit came out during this time as well, and it's kind of all mixed in my opinion. And a lot of what I had nostalgic ties to that I thought I was going to be like, this is going to be the shit that I like because of nostalgia, when I come back to it, especially over the last couple weeks, it's not grabbing me as much as some of the stuff that I thought that I'd hated this whole time. Mm-hmm. And then some of it is a little bit of just like shock value and kind of vanity, and it wears off. And now that the bells and whistles aren't as fancy to me anymore, it's like some of it's wearing off as far as enjoyment. But all that being said, people just really don't talk about new U2, it seems like, nearly as much as old U2. And by new U2, we're talking about
last 24 years
and later.
Yeah. So
we're 1999, but
we're covering 4 albums. released between 99 2000.
Yeah.
Well, the album dropped 2000, right? Just the
Yeah, they
singles,
just started
99.
writing
Yeah.
in 99, and yes, I think one single came out in 99. But either way, we're just going to go song by song in chronological order, starting with All That You Can't Leave Behind.
2000.
And the reason why we're doing that is because kind of the thought process was if we start with like the U2 entering that phase of their career where they had come out of like the 90s pop and like irony shit and they were moving into like just rock, just being a rock band and kind of going back to their roots a little bit, but also trying to be modern. And it's also, I think, kind of around the time when we both really start forming like musical opinions. I think this is one of the few bands where we both kind of shared musical opinions at the same time about the same band. If that makes any sense?
Yeah,
So,
that makes sense. I want to do a little bit of a prelude before we get into this on a couple of things. So, important that you mentioned Pop. 1997, they released Pop. And you're a big Pop guy. So
I love the album Pop.
I know you love it, and I think that's really funny because even though, and we'll get into this, some of the albums that we're talking about today are pretty notoriously divisive for U2 fans, no albums were more so than Pop.
Yeah.
So they released Pop in 97. I meant to do a full listen of Pop today because it's been a while since I've visited it, but I want to give Pop a full listen through again.
Keep talking, but just to prove how much of a Pop fan that I am, I'll pull up my recently played. It's right there.
Hell yeah.
I listen to this album probably once every 3 to 4 weeks.
So wild. That's amazing. Okay, anyways. So they follow up Pop with the Pop Mart tour. It's poking fun at consumerism, or poking fun is the right way. It's a critique, a commentary on excess, on consumerism, on the capitalistic hellscape that we were sinking into at the time, and continue to sink into now. But I was reading a good article. It was just on Wikipedia, I think, kind of giving a synopsis of the Pop Mart tour, and it was saying that although they set out with the intentions of, of this being a critique on big, obnoxious pop culture stuff, and their previous tour, the Zoo TV tour, was supposed to be kind of a commentary on rock star excess and the cheesiness of like hair bands and stuff like that. Kind of, they, by doing that and touring like that for so long, they had become what they were making fun of, and the joke was gone, and they were all of a sudden just a very uncool, super popular rock band on this massive arena tour with a giant lemon on stage with them. So that's important to say because they go into All That You Can't Leave Behind kind of having an identity crisis. The band U2 that was once super cool were at the height of their uncoolness and kind of they were just rock dinosaurs at this point.
And they had done this already once before in their career because kind of through the buildup of their first few albums into like Joshua Tree and then Rattle and Hum, they leaned so hard into like the Americana and the like blues roots type thing in America,
wearing cowboy hats,
they became like they wore it out very fast and very hard, and they didn't even realize that they had worn it out until Rattle and Hum was like out, and then the reception started to be like, oh, I guess U2 just does Americana now.
Yeah.
And then they did the same thing through the 90s with building up a pop kind of repertoire and an experimental pop one at that, but still with the goal of having catchy pop tunes. And at the end of the 90s, they found themselves in the same place where they're like, well, the thing that we started out mocking, we just now are that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
U2 can't help themselves.
They overindulge.
They have a few very good years, and we'll get more into this in the early 2000s. I think of writing a nice, nuanced line of, embracing that they're these massive rock stars, but still being tasteful in their performances and the way they present themselves and stuff. But eventually, it just devolves again, and they have to reform. And
and they, I think, have a consistency throughout all of it, where it always sounds like U2. Up until, I think, kind of a point where it changes pretty significantly, in my opinion, anyway.
Yeah. The second just heads up I wanted to give is I mentioned it on the first U2 podcast we did, and probably a couple times since then, that my dad was in a very influential, very important U2 tribute band.
Are they still on Spotify? Or were they ever?
No, I don't think they're ever on Spotify. You can look up U2 on Spotify and get a pretty good idea of what they sounded like. But they were called Tribute 2. A very important band for me because it was at the time that I was getting into music and guitar, and it's why I'm such a massive U2 fan, is because a lot of my early musical memories were U2 related. But this period of music that they released, these albums, were rich with Tribute 2 songs that Tribute 2 would cover. So when applicable, I'm going to shout out if it was a Tribute 2 song. And I think we can use that as a pretty good metric for how popular the song was. Because the fellas in Tribute 2 made sure to do their research, really, did some market tests on what U2 songs people knew and loved. There it is.
The boys.
That's them. I'll paste that in. They really honed in the set list over years. So if a song was good enough to make it into the core of a Tribute 2 set list, that means it's an all-timer.
And if I may be so bold as to say,
And you may.
we can apply that same theory to U2 as a band as well, because they have some songs, a lot of their songs on their sets, especially lately, with exception to the Joshua Tree tour, a lot of the songs on their sets are just their greatest hits.
Yeah.
They're always going to play Where the Streets Have No Name. They're always going to play Haven't Found What I'm Looking For. They're always going to play
With or Without You.
But they're also always going to play Beautiful Day. They're always going to play Elevation.
Yep.
They're almost always going to play Vertigo. The list goes on. I think a lot of their big career classics come out of the back half of their career.
Mm-hmm.
So,
okay.
not a lot of bands can really say that.
No, definitely not.
Let's jump in, baby.
Let's jump in.
All right. So we're going to start with All That You Can't Leave Behind because it's the first one in our arc that we're talking about chronologically.
U2's 10th studio album.
Correct. And it came out, we discovered it came out October of 2000 or something like that? 30th October 2000. So, came out.
And that's mentioned too, 10th studio album. U2 are about 24 years into their career at this point.
Mm-hmm.
The age that we're at, almost our enther lifespan.
Wow.
I mean, we're a little
We're
older
older
than 24,
we're
but
older
still,
than you
not
too.
that much. Older than you
If
two were at
you
this
two was
point in
going to
time.
high school with us, I would fucking give him a little
yeah.
noogie and be like, fucking give me your lunch money.
Same if it was just Bono himself.
If it was just Bono, I would.
Might bully him to death.
You'd have to censor whatever I'm going to say. Okay, so anyway, October 30th, 2000, which, again, Pop comes out in 1997. It's only 3 years between the two, give or take some change.
Uh-huh.
And that's even pretty impressive for U2 in the 90s because they were going 4 to 4.5 years between each release.
Mm-hmm.
And after the Pop Mart tour, Bono famously said, it wasn't after the Pop Mart tour. It was after the Rattle and Hum tour. Bono said, we have to go away and dream it all up again.
Yep.
Because he's a fucking dick like that. They kind of did the same thing.
Shit that Bono says.
That's the kind of type of shit that dude says. But they shortened up their reformation time pretty significantly, I feel like, in the 2000s. And then they come out. The first song on this record is Beautiful Day, which was a single, and it still is on the radio. A lot.
And I'm going to make a potentially big statement here.
Mm-hmm.
See if you agree with me. Best U2 single of all time.
I think for me, there might be another song that we're gonna talk about later that I would say I would throw my hat in the ring for that one. But it's up there. It's probably definitely in like the top 3.
I think without Beautiful Day, U2 would be nowhere near as relevant in the 2000s and up until today.
Very
as
interesting.
They are.
Very interesting.
I think that song recaptured an entire generation of people's attention.
You probably aren't wrong about that. I think it probably grabbed a lot of U2 fans from the 80s and 90s that were starting to check out, or even had checked out in the 90s. It brought them back into the fold. So yeah, you're probably right about that.
It's triumphant. It's the right amount of like the perfect U2 mix of positive and like kind of weirdly political.
Yeah.
It's just like beautiful musically.
Dude, musically, it's insane. Like,
Yeah.
I feel like it's one of those songs you start to take for granted after a while because you've heard it so many times. But then I gave myself the assignment of listening to all this in preparation. And listening to this in headphones, it's like, it's just genuinely a fantastic
totally. The intro
track.
of it just,
It's mixed
The
perfectly.
soundscape.
All of the like drum machine type stuff and the synthesized strings, it's all just like perfectly done. And it's also just kind of, in a weird way, unlike anything they had done up to that point, which now it's just like conventional U2.
Yeah,
but
it feels like the
wasn't
quintessential. Exactly. Yeah, and that's what's weird. And the other thing that's so cool about the song that I didn't really notice until like really listening to it today is it's so huge wall of sound, but if you like really pay attention, they're so restrained too. Like they're not going all out. And the beat is very controlled and restrained, and no one's going balls to the wall.
Yeah,
but it's
totally.
It's like technically impressive that way, I'd say.
Yeah, for sure. And going right into Stuck in a Moment You Can't Get Out of, I feel like this, although obviously not like a single, not like a... It might be somewhat of a classic.
Was a single.
Oh, it was a single.
The second single off this album.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
Shit. Well, I fucking love this song. I think it's great.
Yeah. So the singles were, the first single was Beautiful Day. Second single was Stuck in a Moment You Can't Get Out of. Both of those were Tribute to songs. The third single, and it's funny, the singles were just released in order. Was Elevation.
Okay.
So all smash singles, and the fourth single was Walk On. So they did 1, 2, 3, 4 in order.
That's so weird.
Yeah. So Beautiful Day, Stuck in a Moment You Can't Get Out of, and Elevation were all core Tribute to songs. Stuck in a Moment You Can't Get Out of is an amazing U2 song too. That is written about Michael Hutchence.
Yeah.
From INXS.
When I was listening to the You Talking U2 to Me podcast, there's the episode where they interview the band and they ask the band like what their favorite U2 songs are. I can't remember which member, but one of the members said one of their favorite songs was Stuck in a Moment You Can't Get Out of, which I thought was very interesting.
That is interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a song you can kind of easily forget about in the U2 canon, but whenever it's another like kind of like I think Beautiful Day and this really the first 3 songs off of this album are so defining for like what U2 would be in the 21st century.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's an amazing trio of songs that it opens up with.
And Elevation, again, like kind of what I was saying about Beautiful Day, you take it for granted because you've heard it so many times, but really that song's like a production feat. Like it sounds so interesting, and it's really like such a simple idea, but the amount of energy that it carries, and even how like nonsensical the lyrics are, but how like provocative they still feel it's all just so good. Like yeah.
So we'll keep going through the songs, but I think that's kind of indicative of this thing that is kind of a weird contrast with this album, because kind of one of the talking points for this album was like getting back to basics of what U2's all about.
Yeah.
And so, you can kind of get that in the songwriting and like them just going back to basic instrumentation and stuff. But I feel like from a production standpoint, Brian Eno and Daniel Lanois really like were given some room to do their thing. You can really hear the Eno influence on a lot of the songs.
Comes through a lot on like Elevation, Stuck in a Moment.
Beautiful Day,
things
the
like the
opening.
drum production, like the snare sound on Stuck in a Moment You Can't Get Out of, it's like so modern sounding and so unique. Like it just sounds like Larry Mullen Jr.'s snare, like from all their songs in the 90s, but clean and like modern and
the new sheen on it. Yeah, no, I agree. Okay, number 3, Elevation. Maybe, so I said Beautiful Day is like the best U2 single. That's from a more objective lens. It's one of my favorite singles for sure. But Elevation might be my favorite U2 song. And therefore maybe my favorite U2 single. It was definitely my favorite song that Tribute 2 would perform. And Elevation was usually the highlight of their set. That or Bullet the Blue Sky.
Nice.
The
rockin'
songs always
ones.
stood out. Yeah.
I think when U2 plays this song live, it always is one of their more rockish songs, which is interesting because it's not necessarily like a rock song. It's a little bit rockin', but it's not like a fucking riff.
Yeah.
But live, it has the energy of kind of like a riff. I would say this is probably also like in the top 3, but it's not number 1 for me as far as best singles of all time.
Yeah.
Still haven't gotten there yet.
Okay, I'm excited to get there. This is going to be, I'm sounding super annoying because I've said this a couple times now, but maybe more than Beautiful Day, Elevation is like the quintessential U2 song. Because it has like, I feel like all of them are really doing their thing on that one. And it has more like Bono moments and like, you know, the weird Bono-isms.
And Edge gets to do Edge shit for the entirety of the song.
Yeah.
I think the only thing that I would say is I think Beautiful Day is more recognizable as being a U2 song. Like people are like, oh, it's that U2 song. But if it's Elevation, some people still just don't know that that's U2. They're just like, oh, it's that one song that I always hear, but I don't know who it is. All right. Should we move on?
Yeah. Walk On.
So Walk On, I think, not to be a Debbie Downer, this is where this album starts to lose me a little bit.
Okay. For me, it's a little later, but
I like the song Walk On a lot. I think it's a very good song. And then when you go to Kite, I'm kind of starting to
I'm with you on that.
I'm starting to get lost.
So my note here was, if you just listen to the 4 songs and it got cut off for you and you only could go off the first 4 songs, you'd be like, All That You Can't Leave Behind is undoubtedly the best U2 album.
See, but that's the thing though. When you put the first 4 songs up against the next, 6 songs or 5 songs, depending on your opinion, like this album just, in my opinion, it dies so hard after Walk On that it almost makes it like their worst album.
It has, for me, a moment of revival within a little while, track number 6.
I agree.
That's a beautiful song, another tribute to one. But yeah, and Kite isn't that bad. So it's really like, for me, the first half, the first 6 songs, the first 5, as I've said, first 4, so strong. And then Kite starts to lose it in a little while, picks it back up, and then it gets weird the rest of the album.
I think Kite's pretty bad. I can't lie.
Yeah, it's not great. It's not great.
I can't really listen to the choruses of the song Kite.
Yeah.
They annoy me. And then, like Wild Honey, I used to, especially as a kid, love the song Wild Honey. Mm-hmm. It's kind of like a Beatles song almost, or just like a McCartney solo song in some ways.
Yeah, I see that.
But now when I listen to it, it's just so basic and thoughtless. It feels just like something they just threw together.
Yeah. I feel like this whole, it just loses the plot, this whole half of the album, the B-side of the album. And like New York, terrible song.
New York is bad.
It's really
Peace
bad.
on Earth, in my opinion, is pretty fucking bad.
It's pretty bad.
When I Look at the World is pretty fucking bad.
Yeah. The lyrics, it's like someone else wrote the lyrics too on the second half. They just like are overly sincere.
It's not even that they're overly sincere. It feels like he's trying to be a cheeseball for no reason.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess that's what I mean by sincere, just cheesy. Just,
Yeah, it doesn't feel genuine to me.
Yeah. I guess sincere implies genuine.
Yeah.
It's been like
kind of does.
Trying to be,
unless you're like
trying to be too wholesome. Yeah, right. Unless you never mean anything you say and don't even know what that feels like.
I don't know what anything feels like anymore.
Yeah, but I guess wholesome would have been a better way to say that. It's like a weird, But all that being said, you can't deny that All That You Can't Leave Behind was a massive success
So
for you
here's
too.
the thing. Here's my feelings about it. I think they went into this, and before this, U2 was all about whole albums, like releasing a concept. Like the entire record was part of a narrative. There was one through line to the album and kind of like one sonic field to the entire record. And then this record is where, in my opinion, it feels like they start to abandon that, and then they're only
They're like a
writing
singles band,
and then they cram B-sides to make a record. That's what this feels like to me. And I genuinely did not know, because I didn't do enough research before we started this, that the singles were just tracks 1, 2, 3, and 4 of the record. It makes a fuckload of sense to me now, because it's literally like banger, 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 and then the rest of the record is mid as hell. And it's not cohesive. Like Beautiful Day and Stuck in a Moment You Can't Get Out of, very cohesive songs. They make sense being played next to each other. And then like Elevation is kind of a sore thumb, but it also sounds like U2, and it kind of makes sense for them trying to reinvent themselves and get back to basics. And then Walk On, I feel like it's kind of the same thing. Getting back to basics, just writing like a normal U2 kind of pondery love song, whatever it might be. So yeah, 4 singles was all they needed. And it still worked for them, because obviously those 4 singles, or 2 of those 4 singles, are 2 of their most popular songs of all time.
Mm-hmm.
But for me, being someone who likes full albums and likes being able to listen to something from start to finish, I can't listen to this record from start to finish. I lose interest genuinely after Walk On. And then like I'll listen to it in a little while sometimes, and I'll listen to like maybe Wild Honey sometimes, but that's it. And then I'm done with this record.
Yeah, I listened to the whole thing for the first time in a while the other day at work, and of course I'm super engaged, like, you know, for the first 4 songs. And then I just zoned out and went back to my work, and by the time Peace on Earth came on, I was like, why the hell am I listening to this stuff? So despite that, still considered a massively successful U2 album. It was exactly what they needed at the moment. It got them out of the drags of uncoolness with the pop album and tour. And yeah, like I said earlier, kind of, I feel like defined their place in the 21st century. So the next album, other thing I want to point out, I use Apple Music. I'm an Apple Music user. I love Apple Music. Apple Music defines this as one of their essential albums, and I put a lot of stock in what Apple Music calls essential albums for people. So according to Apple Music, this is U2's last essential album.
Really?
Uh-huh.
It makes sense, but it is interesting at the same time.
Yeah, we'll see in like 10 years if Songs of Innocence or anything else gets put on that list.
I'm sure I don't have to tell you this. I'm sure you remember as well as I do. The lead single for this song was Vertigo. It was
so we're on How to Dismantle an Atomic Bomb now.
Aren't we?
2004, yeah.
Okay.
The essential album was All That You Can't Leave Behind.
Oh, well then this is even more interesting.
Yeah.
Because when Vertigo came out, that's when they were dropping the iPod Nano, and U2 was in all the fucking Vertigo specifically was in all the iPod commercials. Yep. And Bono and The Edge, the whole band, they were in commercials too. They had like clips from music videos in Apple commercials. They had a How to Dismantle an Atomic Bomb themed iPod Nano that was like black and red.
Yeah.
Like U2 and Apple like partnered the fuck up for this release.
They love each other.
And it obviously was their first time, but it wasn't going to be their last time. We all know how that happens 10 years later.
Yeah.
But anyway, that shit just makes me reminisce and feel very interested about, you know, U2 as a band in the 80s being kind of against corporations and greed and corporate selfishness. And they even carry that all the way through the 90s. They mock corporations in the late 90s. They're mocking consumerism throughout the 90s. And then in 2004, they're slinging iPods for Apple.
Yep.
It's kind of a disappointment. And in hindsight, I thought it was cool because everyone thought the iPod was cool, but the idea behind that kind of goes against what U2's about for me. And the whole album, How to Dismantle an Atomic Bomb, is about like peace on earth and like not being a piece of shit to other people and how consumerism kind of dehumanizes us. And then, like, what better way to celebrate that than by buying a fucking iPod that has Bono's face on it and comes with their new album or whatever the fuck, you know.
They just really can't help themselves.
Yeah.
Because, it's the epitome of selling out, the epitome of not being cool. Which, you know, I don't have as strong as opinions as I once did about that. Mm-hmm. But still, for a band like U2 and for Bono being the type of person he wanted to be any opportunity teaming up with, you know, a corporation or some huge thing that has a bunch of money behind it, it's pretty whack.
Yeah.
There's no getting around that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
anyways.
I just wanted to point that out.
Yeah.
All that being said, How to Dismantle an Atomic Bomb, I would say for a long, long time was my favorite U2 record. And on certain days, it probably still is my favorite U2 record.
I would agree.
And the song Vertigo, which we've just talked about, I would put that at the top of my list for their best single of all time.
Yeah.
I think that this song specifically might have missed some U2 fans when it came out. Like maybe U2 fans thought it was a little bit too brash or a little bit too on the nose. But I think it converted a lot of non-U2 fans to liking U2. And I think that is one of the few songs, especially one of the few singles they've released that's done that. The video for it, like the first time I saw it, was burned into my brain.
Oh, for sure.
It's like the only
We've
music video ever that has just been burned into my brain from the first time I saw it. And it's not even that complex or cool of a concept. It's just like, it's eye candy, but it's fucking amazing. And it just like the way Bono looks in it, his jacket, his hair, his glasses, the way that Adam Clayton looks in it, like when I saw that as a kid.
The way Larry Mullen looks in it.
The way Larry looks in it.
It
with
looks
his
like an action star.
Hair.
Yeah, dude.
Looks like he just got off of a Harley 10 seconds ago.
He probably did. He probably just drove a Harley to the video shoot.
That
Man,
all
they're so fucking cool. I
influenced
love
me.
you too.
Probably that those moments influenced me more than just about anything else in my life.
Yeah.
So yeah, Vertigo, for personal reasons and also for commercial success reasons, I think might be their biggest single of all time.
I think that's a strong case. And yeah, we've talked, like, that was such a foundational music video for me too. Also burned in my memory instantly. I'd be very curious. We need to get more people our age on the pod to see if they had a similar experience with Vertigo, or if it was only us weirdos, like
basically
8-year-old kids.
What I know
kids.
is every time I went to school and talked about U2, someone called me gay. So.
Yeah, so they weren't quite on the same tip that we were.
No.
So wait, before we go further down the track list, Vertigo, first single off the album. Of course, another core tribute to song. So
of course,
we can consider it an all-timer. This, I think Vertigo was dropped 2004 as well. That full album came out 2004.
Yep.
So 4 years essentially between All That You Can't Leave Behind and this album. I would totally agree with you that How to Dismantle an Atomic Bomb is always high up in my list of best U2 albums and oftentimes at the top, and is a better album than All That You Can't Leave Behind. I wish there was an alternate past in which U2 waited 2 years to put out All That You Can't Leave Behind, cut all the garbage off of that, and combined it with the bangers off of How to Dismantle an Atomic Bomb.
Yeah.
And made unquestionably the best album of all time.
Totally. The only other thing it's always something I do, and I don't really know why, but I try to think about other records that came out at around the same time by bands that I love or just records that I like in general. For some reason, I keep thinking about Hail to the Thief when I'm thinking about How to Dismantle an Atomic Bomb. Obviously, Hail to the Thief came out a year before, but I feel like musically, it's 20 years ahead of its time. Comparing it to How to Dismantle an Atomic Bomb, this felt super of the time when it came out. and it doesn't necessarily feel modern now. It feels kind of like it stays in that time capsule a little bit.
Yeah.
Whereas like the Radiohead still kind of sounds current to me, and I think that's just because of what it is. But the other thing that's interesting about that to me is obviously Tom York is my other main influence from my childhood, and he was still pretty young when Hail to the Thief came out, and U2 were middle-aged men when How to Dismantle an Atomic Bomb came out, and they were just in kind of completely different universes. It seems like Radiohead at the time was kind of taking cues from shit that they were listening to, but it seems like U2 was in a bubble for most of the 2000s where they're just like, we're just going to hone in on what it is that we want to do, and we're focusing on that. We're going to just be as U2-y as we can.
Totally. Yeah, and this album is them really honing in on that U2-ishness. They're really becoming as U2 as possible. So yeah, Vertigo, lead single. Second track, Miracle Drug. A beautiful song.
I love this song.
I love this song.
I love this song a lot.
I'm surprised Miracle Drug was not a single. I can get why it wasn't, but it's good enough, catchy enough to be a single.
Yeah. In my opinion, the one thing I will say is compared to the rest of the record, it does seem like maybe one of the more straightforward songs. I love it. I think it's great, but it is kind of just like verse, chorus, outro.
Mm-hmm. True.
Sometimes you can't make it on your own. I think we should talk about for just like a split second, if we can.
Of course.
This was the second single that came off this record.
Yep.
It's about Bono's dad, who I can't remember if he was dying or if he was dead by the time the record came out, but he was on his way. And I just remember I was lucky enough to go see the How to Dismantle an Atomic Bomb tour with my mom. It's the first show that I've ever been to that I remember, like, really, really well. And when they play the song live, there was just an emotional power to it, and the way that they had LED screens back then was like each individual like pixel was just like a light bulb kind of thing. And so they could make like really big images out of like just huge sheets of lights. And so it was just like a dude just like walking while they were doing this song, and it always, again, just like stuck with me. I don't really know why, just like the simple and yet profound imagery combined with like the emotional power of the song. I think in a lot of ways this could possibly be my favorite U2 song of all time.
Oh, that's an excellent choice for your favorite U2 song of all time.
It's
beautiful.
A cheeseball fucking song. It's really cheesy, but I think the one thing that it has that other like cheesy U2 songs doesn't have is most of the time when they're like sad and mellow, they kind of just stay sad and mellow. But this song opens up and gets so huge and loud and wide at the end out of nowhere. Like, it really just comes out of nowhere, and then it just goes away again out of nowhere. I think it's a level of songwriting that they really like broke through and showed a lot of maturity on for like maybe the first time in their whole career.
True. Bono's voice sounds amazing on it too. And yeah, there's I think I read this from David Frick from Rolling Stone, reviewing Songs of Innocence. He said something to the effect of like U2 is better at like telling their own stories now than they ever were, and I think that's applicable. Really, I guess starting at this album and going forward, that they're really like comfortable just like portraying their own experiences and stories in just like clear and honest way.
Yeah, totally. Everything up to this point is like kind of made up narratives just about characters, and Bono's playing characters. Yeah. Now these are songs about Bono and like his upbringing and what made him the fucking insufferable prick that he is today.
All right, Love and Peace or Else, track number 4.
Yes, I like this song a lot. Again, kind of a standard song, not much. I feel like this is a song where they're like, let's get weird with it. Let's just have a song that's kind of noisy and kind of weird. But it doesn't get fully weird. It kind of just gets a little bit like raucous-y. And yeah, it's just kind of like a loud, straightforward song.
Yeah. It fits the album, although it's good.
It does.
And then leads you into City of Blinding Lights.
Yes, which was the third single?
Third single, correct. And another tribute
to... Oh, it was the
to...
fourth single, sorry.
I have All Because of You as the fourth single, but I guess I was wrong.
Yeah.
Okay, well, whatever. They're third or fourth.
Wikipedia is wrong.
Yeah.
Fuck you, Wikipedia.
So, City of Blinding Lights, another tribute to staple. I love this song.
it's interesting. Again, shouting out You Talking You Two to me. They do another episode later on where they're talking to like Just Edge and Bono at Innocence and Experience.
I remember that.
And they weren't playing any songs from Joshua Tree because they had just done the Joshua Tree tour right before Innocence and Experience. And so I guess they just wrote Joshua Tree off the set list completely. And so Scott asked, like, if there are any songs that have kind of taken place of, like, the anthem songs that are on Joshua Tree that are, like, set list staples. And Bono said he feels like City of Blinding Lights has been the song that, like, takes the place of the Joshua Tree anthems because it's, like, super anthemic, and it also kind of like is our generation's version of like any of the Joshua Tree staple songs. Like this is the song that makes us feel like super emotionally connected to you two. So I just thought that was interesting.
I have not nearly as cool as your story of seeing them on this tour, but I remember really well being pretty young, probably when this album came out, like 7 or 8, and hearing that song and just the imagery of like an actual city of blinding lights like, stuck with me. And I remember like closing my eyes in the car and like picturing that, and I still get that same image when I listen to it now.
Me
it's
too.
A very warm feeling.
I get the feeling when I was a kid and we heard this song, I had the feeling of being in Denver by the rec center, driving underneath the light strings that are like above the road.
Yeah. And
I was like, yeah, I still get that feeling when I listen to this song now. And I also think it's really cool. I just like the fact that, I don't know, the fact that this song isn't about a specific city and it's ambiguous, I think is really cool to me. I heard someone at some point saying that makes the song worse because it's like not about anything specific. It's just a vague song about any city. I think that's what makes it super powerful.
The vaguer, the better for any song, I'd say.
Yeah, and there's like already like people say this song's about New York or this song's about California. There's already a million songs about both of those fucking places, so we don't need another one.
U2 literally has songs named in New York and California. Okay, All Because of You, track number 6.
Banger.
Absolute
banger.
So maybe this was the third single then? Is it saying this was the third single?
This says it was their second single. I think.
Oh, okay.
I don't know. I think that Wikipedia might be wrong.
I don't know. I trust this more than
because Vertigo was definitely the first one.
Yeah, I thought it was Vertigo. And Sometimes You Can't Make It on Your Own.
Yeah, that was definitely the second one.
City of Blinding Lights, All Because of You. So kind of in order again too.
It was the album's second single worldwide except North America.
Okay. Interesting.
But I thought it was the second single too.
Well, regardless.
Doesn't matter.
Yeah, banger. All Because of You.
Huge banger. I think it might be their most rockin' song. I think it might, other than maybe Cedarwood Road, I think it might be like their most rockin' song.
Yeah.
It's just like licks all the way through, and Bono does like genuine, like, I don't know, fucking rock singer shit where he's going like, yeah.
The single artwork off of this is pretty dope too. I've been looking at the single covers as you've been going through them. All right. So for me, to a much lesser extent, this kind of has the same thing as All You Can't Leave Behind, where the later, not full second half of the album, but let's say the last quarter of the album, it's good. It's good music, but it like loses me a little bit compared to the first half.
Interesting. I disagree completely. I think this album gets more interesting the longer it goes on, to be honest.
Okay.
A Man and a Woman, Adam Clayton said was one of his favorite U2 songs on the You Talking You2 to Me podcast, which I thought was interesting. I think the song's really, really interesting because it's a bass and drum song. Like, there's not much guitar, and there's a lot of like textural sounds. Favorites. Probably. Yeah. There's a lot of like textural shit. And then the chorus kind of opens up and is like kind of just like a pop ballad. But I think in a really interesting way. And then
It said they've only performed that song once live
Oh, interesting.
at the Clinton Foundation.
Huh. Cool. And then Crumbs from Your Table, I also think
It's a great
fucking
song.
banger.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
No,
I
wasn't
only
saying-
recently understood what it's about too. When I was a kid, I always just thought it was about a dude trying to eat scraps
Yeah.
off of a table, but
Like,
now I
literally.
understand what's actually about.
Mm-hmm.
It's a great song.
It is. That's a beautiful song. And I didn't mean to say I don't like the second half or that the second half is bad. I just said it's like
It loses you a little bit.
loses me a little
compared to
bit.
the first half.
Yeah.
That's fair. That's
Mhm.
more than fair. Especially because the first half is like kind of bangers and like louder, more full
yeah.
songs, and then the back half of it kind of gets a little more experimental, or maybe not even experimental, but just kind of more out there and
Yeah.
raw in some ways.
Which is like kind of the same thing they did on All That You Can't Leave Behind.
yeah. Except I think the songs on All That You Can't Feel they just feel unfinished compared to these songs, which still feel mega finished in my opinion.
Yeah.
And then One Step Closer, I love this song a lot too. I think it's fucking great. I think it's one of the few songs where Bono's not overdoing shit for like an entire song.
Mm-hmm.
I also love Original of
Original
the Species.
That name always was funny to me. I just liked the sound. Original of
I
the
wish it was
Species.
Origin of the Species.
Well, exactly. That's why it like just sounds fucked up and like the Bono misunderstood
Yeah.
something.
Yeah. But it's still a really good song.
Yeah.
And then Yahweh, I do like Yahweh. I will say out of all the songs on the record, I think Yahweh might be the worst one.
Mm-hmm.
And in America, when this came out, it was the closer. So it kind of felt like the album was closing a little bit on a bummer note.
Yeah, but the bonus version has
Fast Cars, baby. Fast Cars, I think, is one of the most fascinating U2 songs to ever exist.
I would have to agree.
And I'll call back to Vertigo for a second because there's guitar licks on Vertigo, and there's kind of a few on like Love and Peace, and then there's even one on All Because of You. Just small textural guitars that play off of like the Mixolydian scale that is prominent in like Southeast Asian culture and Southeast Asian music.
Mm-hmm.
And Fast Cars dips super heavy into Mixolydian as well. And so it's like an interesting thing. The songs kind of sound Southeast Asian in a weird way. And
Yeah.
like the chord structures and the chord progressions are like not typical U2 progressions at all.
True.
And it's kind of a weird tying fabric that pops up randomly on the album, but it makes Fast Cars, in my opinion, seem like it actually fits in with the record because it's not just like a weird outlier track. It kind of does have like thematic ties to other stuff on the record. And yeah, it's just like Bono sings about stuff on that record that he doesn't normally sing about, or sorry, he sings about stuff on that song that he doesn't normally sing about. And they just have a production style and a playing style that they like almost never have on any of their other songs. So I think it's super fucking interesting.
Speaking of production, important thing to mention, Steve Lillywhite. Steve Lillywhite, hugely influential producer.
Say his name
musician.
again.
Steve Lillywhite.
Steve Lillywhite.
Yeah. He, longtime U2 collaborator.
Mm-hmm.
They did not work with him really at all on All That You Can't Leave Behind. They worked with Chris Thomas, right?
Mm-hmm.
Was one of the producers.
And Brian Eno.
Brian Eno and Daniel Lanois. But Chris Thomas was a big presence in there. And if I have this right, I could be wrong, but I think they had problems with Chris Thomas and were kind of sick of him. And they were having problems on how to dismantle an atomic bomb. And they kind of brought Lillywhite in as a consultant. And he ended up, producing
Taking
the whole
over?
thing. Yeah.
Interesting.
Which was a strong move for sure.
It's also
Steve Lillywhite is the fucking man.
it's one of the few U2 records with no Eno production credit.
There's none. Yeah.
None that I know of. I could
Oh,
be
no,
wrong.
he's listed there on
I guess Love and Peace. Okay, so one song.
But one song. Yeah.
Yeah,
right,
I always
that is
thought
surprising.
that they didn't work with him at all on this one, and I
Uh-huh.
think it sounds like it the most to me,
Yeah,
for sure.
definitely. That's maybe the most striking difference between All That You Can't Leave Behind and How to Dismantle an Atomic Bomb. Because they do sound kind of like companion albums in some ways,
Mhm.
and like the songwriting.
For sure.
That's why I said that earlier, where I think you can combine them into
One super
one
album.
super album.
Yeah.
But
All right.
what do I know? All right. So, something else I want to mention out of this album. 2004, this came out. Something that I think is important in our lives and a lot of people's who are our age
9/11.
lives. 9/11 happened before this album.
No, 9/11 was in 2004, right?
Yeah. Right. There was actually U2's idea of how to promote this album. Before putting it on everyone's iPod Touch, this was Apple's idea of the biggest album release of all time. Do a 9/11. The U2 angle was kind of lost in all of the drama of the day, though. Anyways, 2007, an important thing happens. Do you have any guesses at what I'm hinting at? Having to do with Bono. Having to do with people being exposed to Bono.
Nothing's coming to mind.
A very important episode of the popular TV show South Park drops, titled More Crap, in which Bono is portrayed as being a human incarnation of an actual piece of poop. You've seen this episode, right?
I don't think so.
Oh my God, dude. God, should we pause real quick and pull up this episode? All right. We're going to pause for a second. I got to show Julian parts of this episode.
What the fuck?
We're back. We just watched all of More Crap South Park episode.
What the fuck, bro? Oh my God.
So that's so funny you've never seen that before. Because that was I'm probably just making up how significant of an episode it was. It's probably
Did Bono
just
ever
super
say anything
memorable
about
to
that?
me. I did a bit of a search earlier, seeing if he had made comments on it. I couldn't find anything. I'm sure he did. I just didn't look hard enough. But yeah, when I saw that, I knew who Bono was. I don't know if this is actually true or if I'm just making things up in hindsight, but I feel like I had a perception of him being like this humanitarian guy and like having so much praise before then for that. So I remember like the episode making sense to me and it being funny for that, even as a young kid. But yeah, that was like one of my favorite South Park episodes. It's probably one I remember the most.
Damn, they really like clowning on my favorite musicians.
Yeah. So you love clowning on Bono.
I do, yeah. It's so easy.
It is easy.
He makes it so easy.
Yeah, which is why I'm amazed you hadn't seen that South Park episode.
I guess I'm not a real fan.
But anyways, I thought it relevant to bring up for
Yeah,
dismantle
thanks.
and Atomic Bomb,
I can't believe we just watched a whole
they
episode
did
of South Park.
they did a parody of Vertigo kind of on it. All right.
Yeah.
5 years later now,
All
in
right.
the future, 2 years after that South Park episode came out, 2009.
Get on your boots, baby.
Get on your boots.
Get on your fucking boots.
No Line on the Horizon drops.
Let's go.
The 12th studio album from U2. And I think the one on this list you and I were most excited to talk about. Going back to my Liam Gallagher comment, I said that was kind of the No Line on the Horizon of Liam's solo catalog so far, and that's because it's very divisive, and that's what No Line on the Horizon was. I feel like everyone kind of has a different opinion on this. If you're a U2 fan, you have a hard opinion on this.
Absolutely.
And fortunately, you and I both have
We agree.
very favorable opinions that this is a beautiful album.
It's a fantastic record.
Yep.
From start to finish,
Mhm.
except for Get on Your Boots.
Yes, unfortunately, they presented it to the world in a very regrettable
They
format.
put their worst song
Put their
on
worst song
probably
as
their
the
best
lead
record.
single. Yeah.
Yeah.
Crazy move. So Get On Your Boots. It's the 6th song on the track list, but the first single.
It's the first time in a few record cycles where they haven't put the single as the first track.
song, yeah. Which, strong move.
And I've also heard, I don't know if it's true, but I've heard on You Talking U2 to Me, and then I've also read independently that they pretty much had this record done and ready to go without Get On Your Boots. And Bono wanted to add like a rock guitar single to release as the lead single for the record, just because he wanted a heavier rock song. And so they just added Get On Your Boots to the track list because of that reason and that reason alone, which kind of ties into what we were talking about earlier with All That You Can't Leave Behind, just as far as them chasing singles for plays at that time, not streams necessarily, because that wasn't as relevant back then.
What Bono was thinking then.
Yeah, it's a little sad.
So something I came across on the Wikipedia page for this album was the Grammy performance in 2009 of Get On Your Boots. I think that was right after or perhaps even right before the single was released.
I think it was right before the single was released.
Have you seen the performance?
Yes.
It is crazy to me that 9 years earlier, Bono was grappling with not appearing cool or being a cool rock band anymore, and then they thought to do that Grammy performance.
True.
Or Get On Your Boots at all as a song.
Yeah, it makes them seem pretty archaic in a lot of ways. That being said, I think that in a lot of ways, this U2 record is maybe the most U2-y of the U2 records. At least it kind of gets to the climax of the trajectory that they're on for the 2000s.
Yeah, I think that's an interesting point. I think they reached, the climax of what they were moving towards in the previous two albums. I would have to disagree that's the most U2-y, just because they do kind of get a little bit out there, and they are at like a peak of a narrow aesthetic that they were going for.
Sure.
So I think before they really hone in on that, that's why I think like How to Dismantle an Atomic Bomb is
more
U2-y.
Sure. I just think there's a lot of cumulative parts on this record that when you put them all together, you can kind of trace back individual parts to ideas that were established on earlier records that are like more refined and more towards completion on No Line on the Horizon, which is why I think it sounds super U2-y to me. The opening track, No Line on the Horizon,
the titular song,
I think is like quintessentially a U2 song.
It's a rad song. It
sounds so much like everything they've ever done all at once, kind of, to me.
Yeah.
I think it's really powerful in that way.
Yeah. It's like a very dramatic song. More dramatic than some of the other songs on it, like any of the other albums. And I feel like part of maybe that honing in on like what they'd been working towards is like, this is a very, again, with the very important exception of Boots, this is a very aesthetic album and very like mature and a little bit, for lack of a better term, artsier than the other two albums.
Yeah.
And No Line on the Horizon.
Conceptual for sure.
No Line on the Horizon really sets the tone for that.
It's got a lot of like kind of synthesized sounds on it that I feel like U2 hasn't really gotten into before this point. And it also has a lot of just like kind of rhythmic and like different ways of like driving the songs along. I feel like Larry Mullen steps up on this record in a lot of ways, in my opinion.
Bono gets a little bit out there with his vocal performance too in the verses.
I like how on a lot of these songs on this record, the vocal performances are like slightly imperfect. You can hear like imperfections in the performance, and they left a lot of those in,
which is so unusual for U2.
Yeah, and it's super, I think, super cool, like the rawness that brings to this record.
I agree. It adds to the aesthetic.
100%.
All right, second song, Magnificent.
Not a big fan of this one.
I love this song.
Interesting.
If Get On Your Boots wasn't on the album at all, that'd be all for the better. But if it was still on the album and it just wasn't the lead single or any single, and if instead they made No Line on the Horizon a single, or just had two singles and led with Magnificent as the first single, I think it would totally change the reception of this album.
Totally. I think people wrote this record off because of how bad Get On Your Boots was. Yeah.
And not, it wouldn't. And it is like, it's super weird to hear that as the lead single, and then No Line on the Horizon is like the first song on the album. You're like, what the hell is this going to be?
Yeah, it's nothing like the single at all.
But yeah, I like Magnificent a lot as a song.
I think it's just a little too straightforward for me, like especially on this record. Like it's kind of like each song is a bit of a thinker for me, and then Magnificent is kind of just like a no brains pop song.
I've been listening to these songs a lot over the past week, and Magnificent has been the one that's been stuck in my head the most, weirdly.
Interesting.
Yeah. All right.
Moments of Surrender.
Surrender.
Also, one of Adam Clayton's favorite
Oh,
songs,
interesting.
which I thought was also very interesting as well.
Yeah. It doesn't. I like it. Doesn't stand out to me.
Personally, really, really like this song. I like the way, and I think most U2 songs are pretty standard from a structure perspective, like verse, chorus. Maybe there's a bridge if you're feeling funky. Maybe there's some kind of B part where it's a little different than the verse, but kind of the same as the verse.
Mm-hmm.
And then the outro. This song, I feel like, is one solid idea from start to finish, and they're just developing that idea throughout the song, which, in my opinion, that reminds me a lot of like the Radiohead universe, because Radiohead doesn't really dabble in traditional song structures, and they really do kind of dabble in the idea of pursuing an idea to its fullest and adding layers to pretty much one conceptual idea throughout the track. I think this song has that. The drum loop in it is fucking amazing. The do-do-do-do.
Yeah.
Do-do-do-do-do-do. I love that.
You're right. You're talking me into liking the song a lot more.
And I think the longer that it goes on and the more that the like string swells become relevant and the more that Bono's narrative becomes relevant, the more the song just grows.
Mm-hmm.
So I fucking love it. I think it's great.
And this is when kind of a character appears in this album.
A little bit,
if I understand it correctly, kind of a drug addict.
Mm-hmm.
And I think he returns to that theme a little bit more.
Yeah, it comes through around like the last third of the record, I would say.
Yeah. And so this album has a theme, and the title is indicative of this, of being kind of feeling lost. There's no line on the horizon. You're in an unknown land. You're a pilgrim. So yeah, the theme of that comes out in Moment of Surrender, I think, a lot. For Unknown Caller.
Also fucking love this song.
Yeah,
it's great.
Song.
It's so unlike U2 in my opinion in a lot of ways, but it still sounds like U2, so obviously it fits in. Again, I think they're just going into territory that they've not really gone into before up until this point in their career. I think that it's paying off really well. I think one thing that's interesting to me, again, shout out You Talking U2 to me. Larry Mullen mentions, I guess, at one point that this record was like not fun for them to make. Like it was painstaking from start to finish, and that they almost like broke up a few times over it, and that everyone was just not happy with it when it was done. But I think that that's because they put the most time and effort and thought into these songs that they maybe ever have in their career.
So I'm glad you brought that up. I meant to do a little bit of preamble before we got into the album, but yeah, a couple of things. So other than it being a divisive album, it was incredibly hard to make. It took 5 years between Atomic Bomb and No Line for it to come out. They did like a big long session with Rick Rubin at one point and ended up scrapping all that material and get it. Yeah. Not working with Rubin anymore. I think there was kind of a bickering amongst the group. It was unpleasant to make.
It'd be interesting to know exactly what that disconnect was, because Rubin's able to work with so many people.
Yeah, for sure. It seems amicable. It just seemed like it wasn't, wasn't clicking for whatever reason. It got delayed several times, like it was announced and delayed. So that was causing a lot of anticipation, which I think also leads to the poor reception of the album by a lot of people. It's like, you made us wait for Get On Your Boots. And then it was actually right before it was released in 2008, they were planning to release it as 2 EPs.
Interesting.
Instead of a full LP.
Okay.
But anyways,
I think out of all their LPs, especially like full concept LPs, this one is the best from start to finish as far as like staying within the concept.
You think so? Because we're about to get into I'll Go Crazy If I Don't Go Crazy Tonight and Get On Your Boots.
Yeah, maybe I'm wrong. Achtung Baby is up there.
Achtung.
Bebe.
All right.
Let's
I'll Go Crazy If I Don't Go Crazy Tonight.
This song fucking...
I like this as a U2 single. I wish it wasn't on this album.
I wish Will I Am never worked with U2.
Yeah, so this was a Will I Am. Probably a mistake of a song, but like I said, I like it. This was another big tribute to song,
Really?
as was "Get on Your Boots."
Oh, interesting.
"Get on Your Boots" was a crowd favorite
I mean, it's a riff.
for tribute
It's
to.
a riff.
And they did that song well.
I think for if I go crazy, I'll go crazy. If I don't go crazy tonight, that's another one of those instances of they just wanted like a poppy, catchy single, so they threw it on the record, and it doesn't really fit in too well with the record.
Yeah.
It goes directly against what I was just saying about this being their best concept from start to finish.
Yeah.
I think it still might be up there, but
So minus those two songs, I think what you said stands where it's very conceptual. Because then we get up into stand-up comedy, and especially Fez being born.
yeah. Stand-up comedy, I keep calling it to myself their Led Zeppelin song.
Yeah, I kind of see that.
Tell me that's not a fucking Jimmy Page riff.
Yeah,
Like,
it's pretty Page-esque. So yeah, it's a rocker.
it's a rocker.
Good tune.
Very good tune. I think, again, kind of is in a different place from where they normally are on songs. Especially like Bono's vocal performance is quite a bit different than I feel like he normally is on U2 songs. And then, yeah, Fez, Into Being Born, very, very interesting songs.
Songs, yeah.
Yeah.
Strangely, that would make it into the tribute to set list occasionally.
Very interesting. I feel like that'd be a hard one to pull off live.
Yeah.
The Fez part especially.
Yeah, it wasn't a staple
Shut
that they
up!
would get. Shut the hell up, dogs. All right, White as Snow, number 9.
Yeah, White as Snow, again, I think this song is incredible. I think it's so good. And I think that it's surprising. Again, like the way that it drops in and the way that it kind of just moves through the song, again, like one solid idea from start to finish. I think it's just not something that they did too terribly much up to this point, and then they really like let it all hang out, and they really tried to be as like conceptual as they could.
Yeah.
And I think it really starts to pay off on songs like White as Snow.
I agree. And then it closes off with Breathe and Cedars of Lebanon.
Yes. Breathe is all right. It's not like my favorite one on the record, but it's pretty good.
Yeah.
And then I think Cedars of Lebanon is incredible. And I also think compared to how most U2 songs or most U2 records kind of try to end with like something big, something kind of huge and leave like a really big statement, I think it's really cool that this song kind of just ends with Bono kind of like talking some words of wisdom, like keep your enemies closer than your friends, because in the end they'll last longer or whatever. Yeah, that's not what he says, but
yeah, no, it's
that's the gist of it.
Yeah.
And the way that it kind of just subtly ends at that is really powerful and super unlike, I think, any other U2 record, really.
I'd agree. I think it's a dope closing track. It's only the closing track, though, if you don't have the deluxe version, which does have version 2 of No Line on the Horizon as the closing track, which I got to give that a re-listen. But
yeah, I don't think I've listened to that in probably a decade.
Yeah. So that's No Line on the Horizon.
Fantastic.
Yeah. I remember that one coming out. It's 12 or 13 when that came out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And
I think, we would have been in like 7th grade.
Yeah.
I remember getting the compact disc from my father because my dad was in radio, so he would get the new records sent to him every Friday. And he got that one sent to him. He got a bunch of copies of it. He gave me one, brought it over to my friend's house, and we threw it on her CD player. And me and like 2 of my random friends from middle school just listened to the U2 record while we were just like hanging out. And I'm pretty sure they hated it. And I remember thinking like, this is super weird. And I feel like challenged by this record. And then I never really bought into it again super hard after that. I think it just, because of how different it was from How to Dismantle an Atomic Bomb, but how like familiar it sounded kind of in the U2 sphere, it never fully grabbed me, and I didn't really realize what they were trying to do till like way later. And now in hindsight, this is, again, give or take the day, this could be considered like my favorite U2 record at this point.
That's pretty great. So you had a lot more context than I did. I think like being more into How to Dismantle an Atomic Bomb, like going to see that tour. I
I also went to the 360 tour.
Yeah, I remember you said that. You fucking lucky bastard. I knew U2 music. I would have considered myself a U2 fan, but I just didn't have the background, the context of fandom to like appreciate No Line on the Horizon being that different from their stuff. To me, it was like, oh yeah, this is U2, that band I like, and yeah, I guess it sounds like U2. So yeah, it's funny going back to it, like realizing like what a weird moment in time that was, and that I didn't really appreciate it.
Thinking about show to show too, like when I saw the How to Dismantle an Atomic Bomb show, I was in 2nd grade, and then by the time the next record came out, I was in 8th grade.
Yeah.
And by the time that tour happened, it was like the summer of 9th grade. So I was like a young man essentially when I went to the 360 tour, and they only had one album more to play, and they really didn't play most of it. Like they played some songs off of the new record, but the 360 tour was kind of like a nostalgia tour for them, where they're just like, we're just gonna play a shitload of hits and a bunch of deep cuts. Call it a day.
So by the time the 360 tour came around, it was like, okay, yeah, U2 is a legacy rock band now. They're gonna like be the Eagles for the next 50 years or whatever.
Yeah,
which makes it surprising that Songs of Innocence came out. So, a little bit of background. After No Line on the Horizon, U2 had unreleased material from that album, and they announced kind of tentatively in 2009 that they'd be following it up with a sister album in 2010 called Songs of Ascent. It was kind of like the way it was being positioned. It was like, this is going to be what Zooropa was to Achtung Baby, where it's, kind of a sister album. Obviously, and they were actually even then pitching Every Breaking Wave, or, teasing that as the lead single off of that album. So obviously, Songs of Ascent never happens. U2 does not release another album for another 5 years until fateful year of our Lord 2014. I remember 2014 primarily for 2 reasons. It was the year I started dating Julia, and it was the year the iPhone 6 came out.
Two very important
things. I discovered something interesting about myself today. Until this phone I have right now, this iPhone I have right now, I had only had iPhone 6s. I bought like 10 iPhone 6s in a row. Like, iPhone 6 is good enough, I can get them for cheap. And I think
it's a great phone.
I think it's something subconscious that iPhone 6 is what Songs of Innocence came out
on.
I was living in the past. So Songs of Innocence.
Okay, so sorry.
Go ahead.
My little bit of context here. 2014, I'm a hardcore hipster.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not about U2 anymore. I've moved on from U2. I'm a Radiohead guy now and Thrice guy. Those are my bands.
Yeah.
If it's not Tom York and if it's not Dustin Kensrue, I ain't fucking with it. I don't like it. So essentially, I did not give this record a chance. And I remember when this came out, I don't think I was doing my senior photos the day this came out. I was doing my senior photos the day after this came out. I was doing my senior photos with Scott, who I mentioned last week as being the U2 fan of all U2 fans. He can't shit on a record to save his life, a U2 record, I should say. If I was holding a gun to his head and said, tell me a bad thing about a U2 song, I genuinely don't think he can do it. So yeah, we were together. And of course we were talking about this because it was controversial.
Yeah.
And I was just talking about how much I fucking hated it and what a piece of shit of a record it was. And he was just like, nah, man, it's like really good. Like, I swear to you, like, it's a very good record. And I was just like, there's no fucking way that it is.
Yeah.
And it literally took me 10 years to come back around to it and listen to it. And now I have to say it's a pretty good record.
So, and this record is what got us on this topic today. Is last weekend I received a series of heartwarming, beautiful texts from you that I appreciated very much, where the gist of it was you saying, dude, I don't know what's happening to me. I am fully back into U2. Songs of Innocence is an amazing album. They're so fucking good. I love them. And I was just like, yes, dude. Finally.
Yeah. I was doing dishes at work, and I had my headphones on, and I was like, fuck it. We're going to listen to Songs of Innocence. And I think I texted you that about 10 minutes into Songs of Innocence because I put it on expecting to laugh at it and hate it. And almost immediately I was like, wait, is this good? And then I double checked with you. I said, I'll try to save our conversation for the sode, but damn, isn't it pretty good? Or am I tripping? I was literally like, is this actually
no,
good?
dude, it's good. I've been telling people it's a good album for like 10 years now. So yeah, I loved receiving those texts. And then I had listened to it that very next morning. I was skiing that weekend and I listened to it on the way to the mountain. It was like this beautiful morning and snow was falling and I put that album on. It was just it was a beautiful moment.
I think I've listened to it almost every day since I texted you that. Ever since Blue Lips came out, I've been listening to pretty much just Blue Lips. But yeah, it was in my rotation for almost 2 full weeks every day. And now it's starting to get to the point where I'm a little bit over I don't know what you call it, just the experience of it. It's kind of wearing off a little bit, but I still think it's a great record.
So my background with this is funny. I was also at the peak of my hipsterdom probably in 2014. And I was so much a hipster that I had the opposite where I was like, it is now becoming mainstream to hate U2. I had obviously always loved U2, and I kind of have the same thing where like I'm going to struggle to really shit on a U2 album all the way through. But I was like, it's popular now to hate U2. This has been my band for a while, even though like before 2014 they completely fell off my radar. I wasn't listening to U2. I was not expecting a new U2 album. So I took the stance of fuck you, this album is great and you're wrong for hating on it. And I think I did like the album, but I think I tricked myself a little bit into liking it more than I actually did by doing that. But then, you know, fake it till you make it. Those are actually the feelings I've developed on the songs.
Yeah.
So
I think, just one more thing before we dive into the tracks. For me, this album was perceived, and I don't know why I perceived it this way. It was perceived as kind of like a chill, light, like almost acoustic album, like a folky, just jammy album. But it's like not like that at all. It's fucking rocking, and it's huge. It's gigantic. It's definitely the most modern sounding U2 album by far. Like, even No Line on the Horizon, the drums sound like drums from like the late 90s. Early 2000s. They're compressed, they're quiet, they're low in the mix, they're not like driving, and they're not like super low endy. And then Songs of Innocence, the drums are like huge stadium drums, like what you'd hear on a fucking Foo Fighters record.
Yeah, completely.
Apply that to the bass and the guitar and even Bono's vocals. And I think it's interesting too. Bono always used to say when they were doing press for this and after the fact that he never learned how to sing properly until Songs of Innocence.
Yeah.
And I never really knew what he meant by that, but I get it now.
Yeah,
like
you
his
can hear
vocal
it.
performances are by far and away the best that they've ever been on Songs of Innocence.
Yeah.
His foundation is stronger, his diaphragm is there, his air support is way better, he's singing like harmonies and melodies, and he's also like shouting and doing things that he's like never done before in a very, very confident way. So I think that's very interesting as well. He's really pushing himself later in his career to just be the best that he can be, and it seems genuine now as opposed to before where he was just like kind of a douchebag.
Yeah. No, yeah, Bono really is settled into later middle age, I think, with this. And shortly after this was kind of the first time, or not shortly, it was a while after this, but there was the infamous Bono interview of being like, our band sucks. We've never done anything good. I hate us. It's like, whoa. What a bizarre thing for a 60-year-old man to be saying.
I think he meant that in a positive way, though.
Yeah.
Like, I think he meant, and it didn't come out this way, and I kind of felt bad that he said it, but I also agree, like, I think they're pushing themselves in ways that they never pushed themselves before now. And maybe not now as in the year 2024, but in the years like 2014 through 2017, they were pushing themselves to really go somewhere they had never gone before. And I think that it paid off in a lot of really good ways. And the record aged incredibly well. It still sounds like it just came out, in my opinion.
I
think Danger
can't
Mouse,
believe it's 10 years old because to me, Songs of Innocence still feels like brand new.
I think Danger Mouse deserves a lot of credit because I think personally Larry Mullen's drum performances are the best on this record of anything he's ever done. His parts are the most interesting. They're the most broken up and the most diverse. And I say the exact same thing about Adam Clayton.
Yeah.
I think Adam Clayton's bass parts literally carry this entire record like it's a drum and bass album.
It's super strong.
And Adam has the confidence and writes the unique parts that just like back it up. So it's awesome. And I think listening to some interviews, Adam specifically says that him and Danger Mouse worked a lot to just come up with cool parts and really like reinvent the bass for you two together. And so I think Danger Mouse is a huge influence when it comes to this record as well.
Yeah. Okay, let's get into it.
Okay.
Because I was going to say something else, but
you forgot?
No, it required us getting into it for me to say that.
Got it.
So, first song, Miracle of Joey Ramone. The Miracle, parentheses, of Joey Ramone.
I did not like this song until you told me that you like it. And then I was like, I'll go back and try it again, I guess. And it's pretty good. It's definitely not my favorite song on the record. I think it's probably their most, again, like, even on Songs of Innocence, they're going for a radio single or two. I think this is that one for them.
Oh, it is
like,
for sure.
This is the one that'll be on the radio that will get stuck in people's heads. Especially the chorus. Whoa. Or maybe that's not even the chorus, but...
Yeah,
the vocal
interlude.
hook.
Yeah, vocal hook. And this is where you and I differ in YouTube fandom, is that I love them perfecting the anthem.
Yeah.
And you like them getting, and I like them getting out there too, but like
I
you're
like it
really
when they
looking
get
for
really
them getting out there.
I think the reason why I like it, I'm sorry to interrupt, but the reason why I like it is because Edge is like a huge fan of prog, especially like 70s prog. He always talks about like Yes and Rush and bands like that he loves, and Frank Zappa. And Bono is famous for fucking hating prog. Like he says prog music is the worst music ever made, and that if you're thinking about it, then it's not music, and if you have to like do math while you're listening to a song, then it's not enjoyable anymore. I personally disagree. I think solving the puzzle in my head of trying to figure out what's going on in a song is like my favorite part about listening to music. So when they can meet in the middle and do something that's experimental and accessible at the same time, that's like peak music making in my opinion.
Not to say I don't like prog or like, math rock or anything
you
like
hate
that,
prog.
but yeah, that is what I'm saying. No, but I'm more on Bono's tip there, where I love just the art of the song, like of a basic song and turning.
I will say, in my old age, I'm coming around to be that way.
And that's all my dad's influence, because my dad is fully on that too. He loves Rush and a bunch of that prog shit, my dad, but his philosophy and what he ingrained in me is like, if you're gonna be playing a different time signature, it better be worth it. Then like it better sound cool,
really good. Yeah.
It better not just be for the sake of playing in 7. You know?
And for a long time, I only liked bands that leaned into that philosophy of we're gonna do it because we shouldn't do it.
Yeah.
And now, again, coming back around, it's like U2's always been really good at doing things that they shouldn't do, but also incorporating a lot of things that are pretty universal into that as well.
Yeah.
I would say like Pop is a good example of that. There's a lot of shit on that record that they shouldn't have did, but they did do it, and it turned out, in my opinion, and in retrospect, to be like what makes it unique from everything else that came out.
I'm listening to Pop on the way home.
It's so good, dude.
Yeah. But anyways, when Miracle of Joey Ramone came out, the single, I remember listening to it and just being blown away. I was like, U2 is still capable of this. This feels like an anthem that should have been on How to Dismantle and Atomic Bomb, or even All That You Can't Leave Behind.
And I think when I heard it, I was just like, oh, this is a radio single.
Yeah.
They're trying to fucking stroke the
which
fucking...
I very much get. It is derivative. It's yeah. So
but that was just, it was me being a dick. Like now that I'm over that a bit more, I think it's like, if it's good, it's good, and this is just good. So
it having Joey Ramone in the title too is kind of an important thing to mention, that a lot of this album is kind of like, for lack of a better term, a love song to music, or a love letter to music,
and just their kind
their
of
influences, Joey, I don't know if this has anything to do with the origin of the song, but I remember reading an article about Joey Ramone, and when he passed away in the hospital, the article made a mention of saying that at the moment he died, One by U2 was playing on the radio in his hospital room.
Interesting.
So I think that's a pretty cool
Full
that
circle.
they were so influenced by the Ramones, and that when Joey Ramone died, a U2 song was playing.
That's crazy.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people fucking hated U2 for putting Joey Ramone's name on this song. They're like, this is disgraceful. It's a dishonor. But it's honestly
Which
not
is so
really.
It's not. And it's like, oh, are you more of a disciple of the Ramones in punk music than U2 is,
yeah,
dude?
right.
Like,
they started their career because of the Ramones.
yeah, that meant so much to them that they turned it into the biggest
Their
rock
entire
band in the
life.
world. Yeah, like fuck off,
Yeah.
dude. They're allowed to sing about Joey Ramone.
All right. Every Breaking Wave.
Great song.
Great song.
Second single.
Pretty poppy again.
Yeah.
Lot of drum machines and samples in this one. But again, I think considering how different it sounds and how much it feels to me like they're trying to do something that fits in with the modern times but still draw from their past influences, I think the song does it really well.
Mm-hmm. Completely. Yeah, I don't have a lot to say about it other than like it makes sense that the song was kind of written along with the No Line on the Horizon stuff,
yeah.
and was going to be the lead single off of an album that never came, Songs of Ascent. But yeah, beautiful song.
Yeah.
It's such a strong opening to the album. Those two.
Yeah,
songs
and
together.
the way that they are kind of from almost opposite sides of the emotional spectrum and like just the sonic spectrum. One's pretty loud and raucous, and the other one's pretty chill and
Chill. But
really,
still, as chill as it is, it still has like kind of that anthemic
it reminds me of like Bad,
vibe.
kind of.
Yeah, true.
Like, or just like any older U2 song. Like the way that the drums are just like pulsing that four on the floor and bass is kind of just holding it down. It reminds me of old U2 a lot. And then Edge is just kind of like making harmonic noises and stuff.
Yeah. So they get it back into the formula here of kicking off the album with the two singles too. Of first single, second single is the first and second song on the album. Into California, There Is No End to Love.
I do not like the way that he starts this song.
With the Barbara Beach
Santa
Boys.
Barbara, yeah, ba ba ba. Why does he have to say ba ba Barbara?
I know. The whole time I'm like,
Why can't you just say
anytime
Santa
I listen to that,
Barbara,
I'm like, is
Santa
this gonna
Barbara?
resolve into a more coherent Beach Boys reference? Like, what, like
They really leaned into intros on this record.
Yeah.
Each song has its own like fully
unique
drawn out intro.
Yeah, completely. Yeah. So California, one of my
Yeah, it's kind of it's good, but it's not one of the songs on this record that makes me think like these guys are fucking killing it right now.
But then the next one, Song for Someone, fully pulls me back in.
Very U2,
Yeah.
very U2-y song. Again, this reminds me of a song from like All That You Can't Leave Behind, or maybe even like some Zooropa like B-side stuff. Like it's pretty old school sounding, but fed through the modern lens of huge production and very like produced kind of individual sounds.
Yeah. Completely. And that's the third single.
Correct. And I think out of all the singles, this one performed the worst, right?
Oh, I don't know. What did you just mean off of streams alone?
Yeah,
or-
like
yeah.
I think this one was the one that got buried. It's not gonna say.
Ryan Tedder from One Republic was one of the producers on that. You can kind of hear it would make sense that I don't know anything about One Republic, but I'm sure those dudes were big U2 fans.
Probably, yeah. Just like big pop anthems for sure.
Yeah. Iris, Hold Me Close.
I fucking love this song.
Okay, good. I was gonna lead with this is maybe my favorite song on the album.
I think it might this one or a different one of the other songs. It's kind of a tie for me, but out of all the songs, again, listening to this record so much the last few weeks, this is the one that gets stuck in my head the most, and it's the one I always want to put on first.
Yeah, totally.
It reminds me, again, sorry to sound like a broken record, it reminds me so much of old U2.
Yeah.
Like, it's got that sound from I mean, again, it sounds like a song from October. Like, it sounds like a song they wrote in the 70s.
Yeah.
It's fucking crazy how they was that in them the whole time? Were they able to just reach back in and like, oh, let's just write a song we wrote when we were teenagers, you know? Like,
Yeah.
it's so crazy to me that they are able to just reach back into that and channel it so quickly and so easily. And then again, feed it through a modern lens where it still sounds brand fucking new. Like, it sounds like something they wrote when they were 18, but then they held on to it until the recording quality was good enough for them to release it.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely beautiful song. And then at this point in the album is when you really get the sense like, wow, this is really vulnerable and personal and just like it just feels cathartic, like listening to it.
Yeah.
Volcano, that kind of breaks the mold a little bit, but I love Volcano. I think it's a dope song. It reminds me of Vertigo in the way where it's like you could tell they kind of latched on to just kind of like a raucous chorus. It's kind of fun, and they're like, let's write around that.
Yeah.
And I think it works as a song. It's shallow and, you know.
My one gripe is I just don't really like the lyrics in the chorus where he's going, okay, no. I'm not a big fan of that. But what makes it work for me is the guitar and the bass in the chorus, the way that they're hard pan left and right, and the way that they're like a major fifth apart from each other. I feel like those are two things U2 almost never does. They never hard pan guitars, and Edge and Adam don't usually play like a full major fifth for an entire like melodic phrase like that. So I think that's really cool. It's definitely something they don't do often or maybe ever besides this song. So it kind of wins me back for sure.
I love the production there, the mixing, but I like the Volcano hook lyrically.
Okay. I don't know why. I think it might just because it doesn't really seem to mean anything to me, whereas the rest of the record definitely seems to mean a lot, like on a personal level to Bono. Volcano seems kind of just like, again, a rock song chorus.
Yeah, it breaks the mold.
When he says you're on a piece of land above a volcano, that just seems like such lazy lyric writing to me. Yeah. Of course you're on a piece. When are you not on a piece of land? Tell me what are you going to float from time to time and just not be on a piece of land? And what piece of land is above a volcano?
Or the core of the earth is a volcano. Liquid hot magma runs to the core of the earth.
I thought the earth was just completely empty on the inside. I thought it was like hollow. Like a Cadbury egg.
Yeah.
You just crack it open.
And if you dig far enough, you just fall through a void into China. We'll have to consult the scientists on that.
Multiple times as a kid.
Yeah.
Which seems kind of racist now that I think about it.
Well, the reason you were doing it was, we won't get into it.
It was racially motivated for sure.
All right, Raised by Wolves. Such a crazy song.
This song is very interesting.
I love Raised. So, and Volcano Raised by Wolves is a cool pairing for me. And I like reaching this point in the album because they're two songs that very weird hooks, lyrical hooks. Volcano being the chorus that we talked about, and then Raised by Wolves. The whole structure Raised by Wolves is very cool to me. I like it.
It is very cool the way it is structured, and I like that it does feel kind of like a straightforward rock song, but then again, they kind of go in unexpected places with the song structure.
Yeah.
And I don't know, I think that the way that they add layers throughout different choruses is something that they don't necessarily do too much on other records, so it just makes it seem more interesting this time around. I think, again, production comes to the forefront, so it's like, in what ways can we make this sound as modern as possible? So yeah, I think this song is like a U2 rock song that fits the time.
Yeah.
Speaking of U2 rock songs that fit the times,
Cedarwood Road, baby.
This, I would have to say, if not Iris, this is my favorite song on the record.
I was expecting you to say this one. I know that you like this one a lot.
So good.
It's a dope song.
It's just, it has an energy about it that, in my opinion, no other U2 song has. Even because there's songs that arguably are like more rockin' or go a little harder. But I think this one has a rawness of energy that no other U2 song has. Like, he sings in a way that seems super fearless. and all the playing is just so aggressive. Like, I don't really feel like there's many times where I feel like Edge is just beating the shit out of an acoustic guitar and like Larry is just beating the shit out of the drums. I feel like that's literally this whole song. And the lick, like the that reminds me of Jack White. It's like, when has U2 ever reminded me of Jack White before? Never. And this is what, like 3 years after Blunderbuss, so arguably, maybe there was some Jack White influence there, but either way.
And we know that Edge and Jack White are associated.
They're buddies.
They're buddies.
And also, it's safe to say Jack White's been pretty heavily influenced by U2, so it's kind of cool to see it go the other way.
Yeah.
In a lot of the ways, like the past U2 records, all the way up to No Line on the Horizon, it's like U2's in a bubble and just working on their own thing.
Yeah.
And then this song, they're like, let's try to do what everyone else is doing for a bit. And then they latch onto all these trends and production ideas that are super popular at the time, and they just own all of them. They're just like, yeah, we're just going to do this better than everyone else real quick.
For sure.
We'll just lock it in, put out like an impeccably perfect sounding record, and no big deal.
Yeah, no
it's
big
fine.
deal.
It is what it is.
We're just the best fucking band ever.
And Cedarwood Road is like the pinnacle of that to me. It's like a great song, and it's structured fucking brilliantly.
Yeah.
Like the way that the outro builds up and they recapitulate the chorus, but like in a completely different way.
Mm-hmm.
It's just like, damn, they've really never written songs, in my opinion, that are that thoughtful and structured that well from start to finish, where I'm just hooked the entire time.
Yeah.
So yeah, Cedarwood Road's up there. Probably my favorite song on the record. Probably one of my favorite U2 songs of all time.
This album has, for me, kind of a similar thing that I've said on a couple other albums, where like, it's not a bad, the last few tracks aren't bad at all, but like after Cedarwood Road, that is like the climax of the album to me, and then the next 3 songs are just kind of,
I almost agree with
other.
you.
Mm-hmm.
I think Sleep Like a Baby Tonight is amazing.
Yeah.
I think, again, it reminds me of old U2 in a lot of ways, but the way that it, again, the way that it's structured to me is amazing and not like what they've done before, because they take a pretty like regular thing that they normally do, where they start pretty delicate and they gradually like build up into a chorus. But I feel like in this song there's like a fake out where it like builds and builds to chorus 2, but then chorus 2 is actually just like a very chill, very spacey, like synth driven, very melodic kind of just breathing song.
Yeah.
And I think that just because of how it feels so fresh to me and feels like, again, I'm sorry to just keep repeating myself, but the way that it sounds like old U2 fed through new lens is amazing to me. And I think that truly like the emotional peak of the record for me is on Sleep Like a Baby Tonight. I feel like that's where Bono reaches his innermost like peace and point of self-reflection on the record is on that song. So
no, you're right. I'm with you. It is a beautiful song. And yeah, like I was saying, it like feels very vulnerable and personal.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think for me, it's like just that I've been so enthralled by the whole album, and then Cedarwood Road like reaches a new fever pitch.
Yeah.
And then I'm kind of just after that, like,
it really does.
What the fuck's going on?
No, the first time that I really dove into this album, I don't think I even really listened to Sleep Like a Baby at all, because I was just thinking about, holy fuck, what did I just listen to? That was so crazy.
Yeah.
I can't believe that was a U2 song.
Yeah.
But then This Is Where You Can Reach Me Now. Yeah, that's kind of where it gets.
Yeah, I don't have
like,
a lot to say about these last 2 songs. But
The Troubles seems the most to me like a song that they wrote to get on like dream pop stations or something. Like I don't think it was conceptually tied to the record that much. So
right. Yeah. Just
kind of seems like a random song.
Trying a different formula.
Yeah.
Dude. Almost 2 hours. Of course, our longest sode would be U2.
Let me summarize Songs of Experience real quick.
Okay. Bad.
Don't waste your time. Yeah. All that shit that we just said about how it's amazing that they're this far into their career and they're still releasing amazing music and challenging themselves to be above where they were, it all completely leaves on this record. Not a single moment of it is enjoyable for me, and I have tried. I've tried to get through this record like 3 or 4 times now.
I haven't even tried that hard.
I can't even get through it. Like,
Yeah.
I can listen to about 30 Seconds of Love is all we have left because it's actually really cool as a album opener because it's just like, it's kind of like everything in its right place as a U2 song. Like, just very low, drony synths and Bono just like kind of rapping a little bit over it. Not like literally rapping.
Yeah.
But he's just having like a little talk sesh. And then Lights of Home is horrible. You're the Best Thing About Me is horrible. Get Out of Your Own Way is horrible. American Soul is horrible. Summer of Love is horrible. Red Flag Day, I give it a 40%. The Showman, horrible. And The Little Things That Give You Away, horrible. Landlady, probably the worst U2 song I've ever heard. The Blackout, horrible.
Yeah.
Love Is Bigger Than Anything in Sway, I give it a 40%. And then 13, There's a Light. Again, I feel like they're trying to reach back and go to old school U2 for the song 13, like 41, like something like that. But they just can't do it, man. It's just all fed too through the pop lens where they're like, it needs to be as loud as possible and as full and huge as possible. And it's just not fitting for this record or the content on the record at all.
Yeah.
This record is fucking horrible, and I think U2 should retire.
I've never even attempted to listen to Songs of Experience all the way through. It was when it came out. Like, yeah, checked. It was first 2 songs. Like, I'm good. I'm not gonna really dig into this one.
And I think, again, to shout out Danger Mouse on Songs of Innocence, it was like a pop record, but it still challenged a lot of things. This is just a pop record that doesn't challenge anything.
Yeah.
And I think there's no Danger Mouse on this record.
No,
I think that's why. It's because they decided, let's abandon the challenging elements of the pop and let's just do the big anthem elements of the pop instead.
And if you look at the credits alone, you can tell it was just like very single-minded. You know, like
they wanted a shitload of singles.
They wanted singles. Each one has different producers. Yeah, it's all over the place.
Yeah. Cool.
Good sode, brother.
Good sode. For everyone who's been bothering me, like, hey man, when are you going to make an episode about these 4 U2 albums? Now you know this episode's out. You can shut your goddamn mouth now.
I got that a lot.
We can go back to living our lives and just talking about other stuff that's not U2.
Episode 4, whatever it was, our first U2 episode. I got a lot of comments like, hey, dude, super happy you guys are into U2 and that you did kind of a surface level episode on it, but I need you to get into late period U2 albums and spend probably at least, an hour and a half on it.
I really want to know what you think about How to Dismantle an Atomic Bomb, a record that has already came and went from everybody else's lives completely.
That most people our age don't even know of.
They don't know about it at all. That's why we're here, so you're welcome, and leave us alone.
Yep. You're welcome. This has been Podcadzo. Thank you. Good night.
Good night.